What is up, everybody? Welcome in Purple and Gold podcast for Monday, March the 8th. Sacramento State beats LSU last night 6-1, takes the series 2-1. LSU has lost 4 of their last 5. This is the first time since 2007 that they have lost 5 games against non-Power 4 competition. Prior to SEC play, LSU missed the NCAA tournament that year, and it is officially time to sound the alarm. After the 4th inning on Friday night, so from the 5th, 6th inning on Friday night through the end of the game last night, LSU's offense went 9 for 72 against Sacramento State pitching. And Jay Johnson has tried different players. He's tried different combinations. He's tried moving people up and down the order, and nothing has seemed to work. So let's talk about all of the problems on this team. Let me start by saying it is time to sound the alarm. It is time to be critical. I do think a lot of the issues are fixable. And what I'm about to say does not indicate a lack of support for the team or a lack of belief from this host that it can get turned around. However, there are some real issues. And I want to start not with the numbers, but with the intangibles. I just don't see the emotion. I don't see the leadership on this team. I don't see the grit on this team. You know, I've been watching LSU baseball a long time, and almost all of the successful teams have had a Blair Barbier, or have had a Josh Pearson, or have had a Mikey Matuk, somebody who was gritty and emotional and could be a leader. And, you know, even Daniel Dickinson last year, gritty, gutty, playing through a hamate bone injury at the end. I think LSU has great players. I think guys like Curiel and Milam are just quiet. And I think LSU's searching for a leader. I was hopeful maybe that would be Cade Arrambide. I was hopeful that a guy like Seth Dardar, who's from Mandeville, might have been able to come into this program and be that just on the basis of being a Louisiana guy. Jake Brown doesn't seem like he's that type of guy. And it just hasn't materialized yet. It's hard for pitchers to be your overall team leader because they're only pitching once a week or they're only pitching a couple of times. So there's that. And I think that that's something that maybe can't be immediately fixed. Could it be overcome? Yes. Now let me talk about the second piece. Is there a little bit of a Murphy's Law, kind of whatever can go wrong will go wrong thing at play here? Somewhat. LSU hit a lot of balls hard last night. They seem to be right at people or they seem to be caught. But that is being offset by the fact that they take bad at bats. They can't string together good ones. The first walk they drew in the game last night was in the 8th inning. LSU drew 14 walks the Friday in Jacksonville when they played Indiana. They had multiple games where they had, 10 plus free passes between walks and hits by pitch. Those have all evaporated. I thought, even though Braden Simpson knocked in the only run last night, I thought he had a couple of bad at-bats where he went hacking and fishing. I thought Derek Curiel seems to be a little pull happy right now, sort of getting away from maybe his game of getting on base and being the guy who's constantly on base, constantly making things happen. Jay alluded to the fact last night that they played Braden Simpson and Daniel Harden in an effort to be more athletic and maybe do more things on the bases, but then they couldn't get anybody on base and they couldn't run the bases. So let's talk about where they are. So they dropped to number 13 in the D1 baseball poll. I think that's more than fair. I don't think they should have been a top 10 team anymore, and they certainly haven't played like it for the better part of 2 weeks. What can be done to fix whatever is wrong? Well, the first thing is they've got to come out and they've got to get back to the approach on offense that made them so successful the first 8 games. And that was working counts, chain to chain, baseball, taking hit by pitches, taking walks, moving runners along, doing all the things that would ultimately add up to just scoring more runs. Friday night was very cathartic, but it came with a barrage of home runs that you just can't count on night after night after night. So that's the first thing. I don't know necessarily, Jay and those guys, they'll get in the batting cage, they'll get, in the video, and they'll address whatever it is that they need to attempt to address. They need Chris Stanfield back. I don't think that's the only thing wrong, but it's one of the things that's wrong. And then I'm going to continue to pound the drum and say that I think Jay needs to stick with sort of one lineup. Last night, Dardar's at third, Carraway sits. The day before, Harden's in left. Now he's at DH. And Mason Braun was in left last night, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Why Harden would be the DH and Mason Braun would be the left fielder. There was a ball hit that scored Sacramento State's first run that went for a double that went off Mason Braun's glove. I think Daniel Harden would have caught that ball. But again, Jay's trying stuff, and you understand that. LSU's weekend pitchers were more than fine. Kason Evans was perfect through 5. He carved up Sacramento State. Cooper Moore wasn't at his best, but he left only giving up 1 run. And when William Schmidt came out of the game, he had given up 1 earned run. The relievers Gavin Guidry wound up letting in 2 of those inherited runners, so he ended up with a 3 earned run line. But I mean, that's, Sacramento State scored 5 on Saturday. They scored 6 last night. Plenty enough. LSU should be scoring plenty enough runs to win those games. So where does LSU go from here? Well, this is it, right? Pre-conference is over. They'll play Creighton tomorrow night. And then it's an SEC weekend on the road at Vanderbilt, who's quite frankly scuffling, and they've got a lot of injuries, and they've got their own problems. LSU's got to get this thing turned around. Got to get a win tomorrow night, and hopefully go to Nashville and put your best foot forward and maybe win 2 out of 3 and sort of stabilize this thing. The longer that this goes on, the more problematic it becomes, not just from a record standpoint, not just from a obvious standpoint of losing games, but the longer this goes on, you start to question if this is not necessarily just a funk and if this is just not who this team is. I was asked a question last night by a friend via text during the game, and the question was, did we overvalue this team? Do we not have what we thought we had, in a roundabout way? I'm going to say yes and no. I do think there are some signs that some of these guys maybe are having a little bit of a trouble making the adjustment, and I'm looking at a guy like Zach York, but in the whole, in the aggregate, I don't think that we overvalued this team. I think guys like Zach Cowan and Cooper Williams in the bullpen have not pitched well, and that can sort of be fixed. I think other guys like Ethan Plog and Santiago Garcia have been fine out of the bullpen. I think they may have overvalued Grant Fontenot and whatever he was doing in the fall and the preseason. That hasn't necessarily translated. But then there were guys like Trent Carraway, who I think has been fine. I think, I think Seth Dardar was in a little bit of a funk, but I mean, he walks a lot. He gets on base still. He had a hit last night. I mean, I feel like we didn't overvalue the team as a whole. Do I think maybe some of the parts aren't fitting in exactly how we thought they might? Yes. But I also think now is the time. And again, I know they did this Friday night. I know Jake Brown did it Friday night. But I think now's the time, starting tomorrow night against Creighton. Somebody's got to go out there and make some plays. Somebody's got to go out there and get a big 2-out hit. Somebody's got to go out there and hit a triple into the corner and be fired up. When you have, like LSU had last night, a couple of chances with a couple of guys on, I think it was Cade Arambidi one time, you can't make that last out. You got to drive those runs in. And, LSU had a chance last night. Braden Simpson had cut it to 5-1, and they had 2 on and 2 out, and I think Daniel Harden made an out. Like, it just isn't happening for them right now in the way that it needs to. But it's time to be concerned. Like, there's no more just saying, it was a couple of games, or it was a bad week, or they played so many games in so many days. Now, the one thing I will say before we get out of here, if you watch this every day, and I appreciate it if you do, and please like and share and do all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at RobG1124. I did a scheduling preview podcast before the season started, and I did say that this was an unusual schedule in the sense that people who know college baseball, I have a lot of respect for Northeastern. I have a lot of respect for Sacramento State. I pinpointed the road game at ULL. I talked about playing Creighton. That's not an excuse. LSU should not have 5 losses at this point in the season. But do I think Sacramento State can go win a lot of games in the WAC? Yes. Do I think ULL, who just took 2 out of 3 from Dallas Baptist, will be just fine in the Sun Belt? Yes. Do I think Northeastern will probably find a way to win their conference again? Probably. Like, do I think Kent State's going to win the MAC? Probably. But that's not an excuse for where LSU is. Do you hope that LSU is as prepared as they possibly can be going into SEC play? Yes. But it's not an excuse to have 5 losses in this situation. So that's where we're at right now. That's where we find ourselves. And we'll be back to preview Creighton tomorrow and talk about the week ahead. As always, be good to one another. Oh, one other note. Tonight, World Baseball Classic, 7 p.m. Central on Fox. America's ace, Paul Skeens, on the mound for Team USA. I'd be remiss if I didn't direct everybody and your attention to watch that. If you're looking for a break from LSU's off tonight. Go watch Paul Skeens pitch for Team USA against Mexico. And always, 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 go Tigers.